I'm just checking to see if I'm on, and I see yes, it's on right now. Okay. Good morning. This is Spirit Journey, and I hope you all are having a good morning. It is about almost 8:30 a.m. Yes, I'm doing a live stream right now, and this is very earlier than usual, but I want to get off a lot that's on my chest and enjoy the rest of the day and everything. Well, as you can see with my um, title, entitled Changing of the Gods via Pedowood, I just have my notes on the side. So if you see me turn my head over, I'm looking at some notes, things to help me remember certain points and everything. So I'm not trying to be rude. But I hope you all are having a good day. Yes, today is Friday. It is August 3rd this year. Yes, hello, viewer. Good morning, good morning. Yes, yeah, if you like to, viewer, you can just type in and say hello, so I can say hello back and say your name when you pop up, only if you want to. Yes, good morning. I'm just getting started here and have a lot on my mind lately. I've been, I have my notes here. Yeah, boy, I've been getting very stressed lately. Very stressed, and I hope you can hear me. Let me know if the volume is too low or too loud. I know my voice could switch a little bit, and I may not realize that I'm not speaking up loud enough. It's a bad habit that I do. But just let me know. Keep me posted, and you could. I have my monitor in front of me, and so if someone comments, I'm able to see it right away and um, be able to know what's being communicated. Okay. Yeah. Lately, I've been very stressed about all this talk about the pedophilia, the Pizzagate, things like that, and I've done a video a couple of days ago. It was a live stream I did, and I vented a little bit about my feelings about the matter. And as I've said in many of my videos, that I'm an individual who has been molested as a child, and I have confronted two of the people who had molested me growing up, and it's something with the topic an individual, especially when they're a young child, when they get violated, whether it's physically or sexually, it's something that kind of stays with them. Some individuals, and I know of an individual that said to me, just get over it, just like that, and dismissed it. And it's not like that I choose to dwell on it, things like that. Maybe sometimes, but growing up, it's not about holding on to the pain. It's about that it affects every aspect of your life. It it affairs with how you relate to others, because again, especially if there were family members that violated you, that again, your family are the first people that you see socially, and they're the ones that really set the pace of how you interact with strangers, others, teachers, people just in casual contact. It affects everything. And I see with me, I was very shy and withdrawn. I would say that that would be the consensus of those who knew me back then, how I was. But getting back um, with what's happening on social media, um, what's re-triggering my awareness of what happened to me growing up. And again, also, I am a veteran, and so I'm carrying that I wasn't in combat, anything like that, thank God. But yeah, I was also in the military. I was in the Navy, and that comes into play as well. But I would say, like, what's really triggering my emotions these days, um, I think it's a week now, about a week. Again, I am a YouTuber. I love watching YouTube, and maybe I watch YouTube too much, but I would say about a week now, or a week and a half, I've come across this person on social media. I've seen them on YouTube, but they're actually on Facebook and this other social media that I don't have. But the person goes by the name Isaac Cappy. And Isaac Cappy, he's an actor, but he hasn't done a lot of acting lately. He's done a lot of little parts over the years, but he recently hasn't been doing any television or movies, things like that. But he has shown that he is in contact with people in Hollywood still, even though he's not in the movies now. But Isaac Cappy, those of you who don't know about him, I've seen a lot of his videos on YouTube through other YouTubers who attach his live streams from other social media, and then they copy it and put it on YouTube. So YouTube is my primary social media. I really don't like other social media. I'm not really comfortable with it. I do have a Facebook account, but I really use it. So I'm able to learn about this individual, Isaac Cappy. Cappy is spelled Kappy. Again, he's a person from Hollywood, and he what you call outed a lot of people, very, very well-known actors and directors from Hollywood, and said that they were pedophiles. And then you have another person, this other person that I learned about on YouTube. Again, she uses a different platform, but someone takes copies of her posts and puts it on YouTube, and that's how I get it. Her name is Sarah Ruth Ashcraft, Ashcraft. And she is someone who was violated as a child. And she made posts on, I think it's called tweet. She was tweeting, or Twitter. And she had written some of the things that happened to her and mentioned names, just like Isaac Cappy. But Sarah Ruth Ashcraft, she started posting things that happened to her. I think it was in November or December of 2017. It is now 2018, August. But now Sarah Ruth Ashcraft is becoming more known over social media about her claims of being violated. She was pimped out, I think she said, by her father, and sold to a Hollywood actor, and all the traumas that she went through. And I could feel her anger, and I could relate to her on a level of betrayal. And again, my father had violated me and used a lot of mind games on me. And so I think that's what's really attracting me to this sudden, I shouldn't say sudden. I mean, it's been coming out here, the Pizzagate, Pedogate, but now this is specifying Hollywood's play. I've never been in any movie or anything like that, but the traumatization and the sexualizing of a youngster, that's what's on my mind. And I haven't really pondered the depth of things that happened to me. But I feel that it's time for me to really deal deep about the things that may have happened to me growing up. Um, Again, when you're violated, you block out a lot of things. And so I think it's time for me to really um, seek the counseling that I may need to really explore some of the things. Well, that's my little doggy in the background snoring. So if you hear oh no, it's my little girl snoring. Either I apologize. So it's waking me up. It's my tapping into to empower myself. My doing this video is about self-empowerment and to encourage others to deal with the things in their past and maybe to find your own voice. And by coming out, you're also encouraging others to be able to do the same. And so slowly, so you had Sarah Ruth Ashcraft who came out last year, and now you have Isaac Cappy, and they're giving names, and they're sharing what they know. So I'm also reminded by, what's going on. This is the newer individual that I came across just maybe 2 or 3 days ago. This other person on social media, she goes by the name of Fiona Barnett. She is from Australia, and it's she that is really encouraged me to do this particular live stream. She said, now, Fiona Barnett, she's an individual, I think she's in her 30s or 40s, and she shared a detailed story. She did like a what do you call it, like a press, I forget the terminology, when you're on the news and then you give a statement. There's a name for it, but she gave a formal disclosure of the things that happened to her growing up. And with her, she was what they call satanic ritual abuse, SRA, it's known. And she was violated, she was raped, tortured in Australia. Her handlers, you wouldn't believe this, her handler was her own maternal grandmother, and her grandmother was married to someone else, not her grandfather, so it was her step-grandfather, that both of them that violated her, and her story is horrific. But she said a key thing, and that key thing was about, how'd it go now? What's the whole outcome? What's the whole purpose of all of this stuff? Why was she satanically, ritually abused? And again, the one thing what satanic ritual abuse does, it's used to traumatize. Well, what's the whole purpose of traumatizing them? Well, when you traumatize a young person, a little child especially, the mind compartmentalizes. The mind tries to protect itself from the trauma by splitting, by, in essence, what they call getting another personality. It's fracturing your personality, the person that you call the you, and making almost like another you that can deal with the situation. So it's like it's developing multiple personalities. And so the trauma that you incurred is blocked off, is shielded. The brain, the neural passageways of the brain can set up what they call walls. And so the main you, so to speak, does not experience it because the mind has to try to run away from the situation. That's how it copes with it, especially as a little child. And they by traumatizing the child, it produces this walling off the you, the conscious you. And so when they develop the so-called personality or persona, they use those personas to do stuff. And so the main you doesn't know what happens. And so it's about creating little soldiers, human soldiers. See, we all think, and coming from the military, a soldier is not someone, I mean, a modern soldier now, you don't have to carry a gun or a grenade or a bomb. You don't need that. But you need someone who is trauma-based, mind-controlled, and the walling off of the main consciousness, and so that subconscious person or persona is the one that's doing the dirty deed. And so modern warfare is using children primarily because a child is not as big as an adult. They're weaker, they're smaller, they could be manipulated a little more. So they're being used. And they're using these children for in Hollywood. And it seems like modern day Hollywood, and maybe the original Hollywood was the same thing, it's just that we know about it now, but it seems like Hollywood are using these young children and sending them out to blackmail people in government, whether it be a congressperson, a senator, maybe even heads of states. And again, they're using these children as sex toys for these perverted people in government. And even other Hollywood personalities are using these kids. And then once they use these kids for these people, they are blackmailed. That's what, and when you can blackmail someone and they're afraid, the person being blackmailed, then you can control them. And so that's the name of the game. The name of the game, and why they are using these little children and adults when they become adults. The same thing. You can use them to blackmail someone else. And I heard through some of these victims of these mind control games and these creating these super soldiers. You influence governments. Maybe you set up policies and procedures to control a nation. You can control a population. It seems like now with Hollywood, that Hollywood is the, things that you see in the movies and television is also an extension of mind control. The things that I see, and again, I've mentioned this several times in videos, that I was heavily into television when I was a youngster. And I remember the emotions I had, On one level, okay, this is just make believe, but on a deeper level, it seemed real. Why watch something that is not real in your life? And back in the early 80s, remember the 1980s, early 80s, that's when they had a lot of movies with young people. These people were like maybe 7 years younger than me, and it was like a flood of Hollywood movies that featured teenagers, and they it seemed real. It made me feel like, why I'm not living a life they're living. And remember, they were very precocious, and it's all up in your face. They used a lot of potty language. They had movies like Poltergeist. Like, what was Poltergeist? They had, remember, they had young people in that one. And remember that they had the little girl that was in that movie. And it turned out that she died. Oh, what's her name? It was the little girl that had the very, very, very light blonde hair. Oh, boy, I forget her name. But yeah, the little girl in that movie, Poltergeist, she died of, it was claimed that she was misdiagnosed as having irritable syndrome, but they later said that she had an obstruction in the GI, and she became septic. Septic is like the toxins that go in your bloodstream, and it kills you. But other people are saying that she was violated sexually, and something happened to her on the set. And it's what's really something about this Hollywood stuff that, see, I guess the parents, some of the parents get starstruck or director struck. You know what I'm saying? That you don't question their authority. You don't question the director or the producer. Oh, they'll make you into a big star. Your child into a big star, and it's appealing. The money is appealing to them. The fame is appealing. And they said that, oh, well, you can't come on the set with your child because you'll distract the child. See, that's another red flag. It's a red flag when the parent's not allowed. And in some cases, the parent is involved, but they're in on it also with the abuse. So it's unfortunate. Parents, stop being starstruck and start protecting your children. And some kids are abused in their school. And I look back of my childhood and how it pertains to like the black community. Now I look at the black community. I live in New York City, and I always went to public school growing up as a child. But I look back at the community I was in. I was in elementary school in the 1970s. And back then, corporal punishment, you got hit in school. I think nowadays if teachers hit the student, they could get arrested. But when I was a child, we got hit. And yes, I got hit too. But listening to the stories of Fiona Barnett and Sarah Ruth Ashcraft and Isaac Cathy, it started making me think about when I was growing up in school. And I think back now, I hope those who I hope this message really gets out. I went to PS 118 in Queens. That's PS 118 in Queens. It's an elementary school it's either in St. Albans or Hollis, New York. It's on the border of one of those. I think it's actually in St. Albans, Queens. I remember something that happened to, I think I was in kindergarten. And back in those days, you had most of the teachers, and still most of the teachers in New York City are white females. And many of these women, they live actually in what they call Long Island, New York. They live in Nassau County or Suffolk County, Long Island. That's where many of them live, at least back then. Um, but I remember a teacher. Um, I don't remember the teacher's name, and I wouldn't doubt if this teacher is long gone, um, but I might have been. I think this was my kindergarten class. There was a lot of coming back, going to and fro different schools. Um, yeah, and that causes a lot of confusion for me. But I think I think I want to talk to a a therapist, what do you call it? Someone who can do um, uh, a hypnotherapist to try to remember some of the things, because there's a lot of things going on, going to different schools and moving, and a lot got lost in my memory. But I think it's an important memory, and I'm just stuffing it. I think it was some type of trauma. Again, it could be wrong, but I feel that's something I'm repressing. But either way, I went to this school, PS 118, and I think it was in kindergarten, and it was a young girl. I sat in a different table from everyone. I sat alone in this round table, and everybody else sat at the regular desks that were all connected. And I remember the girl, she might have been wiggling her seat a little bit. She was quiet. The classroom was quiet. And I remember the teacher freaking out on her, started yelling horribly at her. And I remember that the little girl was tied down in her chair. The teacher said, "Stop moving around," or "Sit quiet," or something. And I forget what was used to tie her down, whether it was a belt. And I'm not sure if I remember right whether masking tape was put over her mouth. I kid you not. It was so traumatic, me watching. But yeah, I think she was tied down in her chair, and I think something taped over her mouth, masking tape. It was something. Could you imagine a teacher doing that now? Doing that to a student who wasn't doing anything. She was quiet. And so I think about things like that. And I remember a lot of the students later on, because that could have been kindergarten, but later on in that school, you had a lot of violence, primarily the girls. It was a lot of fighting. And again, I'm not going to mention names of people, but if those of you who remember this kindergarten class, what year was it? It could have been 1970. I know that's going way back. Let's see, or maybe 60. Let's see. Let's see, 72. Okay, maybe it was 68. It could have been 1968, around that time. And yeah, around that time. So anybody who was in that classroom around that time and who recognized me, what happened there? What do you remember of the incident? That's what I remember. She was tied down, and I think her mouth was taped or something. It was awful. But yeah, a lot of the girls in that school were very violent, and I've made mention of this in past videos. But I wonder why all this violence. It's my understanding in the Black community that we all got together. We were a community that sought ourselves out. We wanted to live in community, but somehow our neighborhoods changed overnight, and drugs was being introduced. People just acting out. So what I think was going on, to try to tie everything in with what does these acts of violence on these children, how it affects us. Well, if you traumatize a child, they can influence an area. They use as for blackmail. But like when you traumatize a particular group, like a whole community, like the Black community, again, Blacks, at least in New York City, are forced to live in very cramped neighborhoods. It's very crowded, Black neighborhoods. You go into a typical white neighborhood in New York City, it's spread out more. The classrooms are not as congested, but it's I think that's changing now. But in Black neighborhoods, you're forced to live into very tight, congested areas. And that's where violence starts to really pop up. When you're all forced to live in a small environment, you're going to get cranky and everything. And again, these teachers I have just mentioned that tied down a student in the chair and verbally insulting them in front of the class. This happened more than once. Not the tying down. The tying down happened once, but the verbal stuff happened more than once. In another class, that was in the 3rd grade, this teacher just flipped out on a child verbally. And this child, I remember, she was, after that, always put in the remedial class. And the remedial class in the Black neighborhood are always the so-called troubled kids, the violent kids, the kids that are depressed. Every negativity, that's what's in there. So I think it's all by design, what's happening in the Black community. And I don't understand. I see that there's comments here. Yeah, I don't understand why this is happening. I just want to lift something up. Okay, I see that someone wrote a note here. Yeah, okay. Yeah, Cam, yes, how you doing again? Yes, red flag when parents are not allowed. Yeah, that's right. A lot of parents are not allowed in the room. Yeah, it's a red flag. Yeah, good morning, Cam. It's good to hear you. Something was blocking the your message up, so I didn't see it right away. My apology. But yeah, good morning. But yes, I see with Black communities now. I think the Black community is used strategically, and first you traumatize a whole group, so you have them live in a condensed environment. You traumatize them with these teachers, these white teachers that were part of the white flight, and you undereducate them so they cannot compete in the job market. They're forced to stay in that community because they don't have any real skills. The drugs were introduced, and families are destroyed. So also how I think Blacks are used. Now, so on the surface, this traumatization on Blacks keeps us in these communities and makes us not able to function and to harm one another. So what's the best way as a soldier to hurt your enemy? You have your enemy hurt themselves, okay? And then this traumatization of Blacks also, like the movies that were done in the especially the 1980s and 90s. Now just notice about these movies that came out back then. Well, primarily were all these movies with Blacks back then. There were gangsters. They used the black male extensively in the 1980s and 90s to be gangsters, to be drug dealers. And no wonder why I was afraid of black men back then. I was afraid. I was afraid because I was being victimized by some of the men in my family who were black. Uh, I was traumatized by other blacks, by the students that I was with. You can learn to be prejudiced against yourself and others of your community, and that's also why this traumatization. I'm understanding now slowly, and I share this with you because I want you all liberated. I don't want you to be traumatized, but to realize what the traumatization was used for. And so I'm understanding now as an adult why these things were showed to me via television, through the radio with the music. It's to keep you in a mindset of control. And with me, my mindset was one of fear. I was afraid of everything. I was afraid of my community, and I actually thought that the white community was my friend, and that how I wanted to live in I lived in a nice area, what was considered a nice black area, but I was attracted to Hollywood's rolling hills, those big fancy mansions and everything. I liked the clothes they wore. The schools, they all went to really upscale schools in the media. But now I see that was the lie. See, that was the programming to show that black people are dirty, are violent, are drug dealers, the black women are prostitutes, blah, blah, blah. See, that is a form of mind control. See, that's what I'm getting now. And I hope that the right people see this video, because it's going to unlock doors within your mind of realization what really was going on. Both black and white are being used in this mind control. And I believe that my father was instrumental in my early development of this mind control, this traumatization. He was very violent. He was very intimidating, and he was about controlling. And it's really something that my father also was in the school system. That's right. And I remember he wanted me to attend the school that he worked at, and I feared him, and I didn't like him. And I especially didn't want to go to the school that he was at. I wanted my freedom. I wanted, when I went to school, that I'm not reminded of the family that I lived among. And yeah, I remember key words he would say, like, he would say to his colleagues that you owe me a favor. You owe, that word, you owe me. You owe me a favor. And what they do, see again, I think it's all ties in. See, when you see people cover, in the school system, they cover for each other. And you have perverts in school. And perverts know other perverts, and perverts like to work with other perverts. It's, the bird and a feather flock together. And so they like the school system because they have access to children, and then they traumatize them, or they sexualize them. They might try to befriend. And I remember it came out. See, my father used to always say that, oh, everybody loved him and this and that in the school system. But I found out through someone that, how'd it go now? that he was known as being fresh. That's right. And I remember my father always talking about, oh, I have these monitors, and they come in, they water my plants, they come in, blah blah blah. Now, what's that all about? Why do you need someone to water your plants? Things like that. Well, with students want to go to college a lot of times, and they want to get extra credit, or to put, it's like a resume, so to speak, something to put on their in their files, so that when they apply to schools, that they, yeah, that's the word, extra curriculum. So these students want the extra curriculum, that, oh, I worked for so and so in this school, I assisted them, this and that, and then they need the recommendation. And that, so they might have been afraid to speak out. But this person recently, I think maybe 2 years ago, oh wait a minute, a little more, no, more than 2 years ago, this was in 2012. Oh wow. Yeah, it was in 2012. This individual told me that they knew my father, and that the word was that he's fresh, meaning that he does things. The person did not elaborate, but it's telling me something. It's telling me that people who have this need to control, this ultra need to control their kids, and to violate them sexually. And it turned out also that a family member had called me about a year and a half ago, that they remember seeing my father coming into my room at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. And that explains body memories that I may have had. And so again, how the mind blocks itself, I don't remember him coming into my room at those hours in the night, but I do remember in the daytime he used to just waltz in my room, and I'm there. I was like exercising. Oh, I'm sorry, and leave. And it will also explain. See, I'm trying to put the pieces together. I was sleeping in my my twin's room, and this other family member again was coming up the stairs, and for whatever reason I pretended to be asleep. I don't know why I did that. I'm sleeping in my it's not even my room, but it was closer to the main floor, so I can hear what's going on in the house, whatever. And my second molester had done something to me. I was petrified. So I understand with these people like Fiona Barnett, who shared her traumatization, her rape and everything, and how they're shamed, they're afraid to speak, and you kind of play dead to everything. And so I'm sharing this so that others could try to put the dots together in their life, and to try to make sense what's going on, why they act certain ways, So yeah, so things like that. So things like that could happen. Okay, so what I didn't say, like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my thoughts. So I was mentioning about family and my father and the school system, so birds in a feather flock together. And if you are in contact with children, you can control them. And then they don't want to speak out because they're going to use you as a reference. And the same type of thing, remember with this what do you call it? It was with the women's gymnastics, the so-called doctor that was a sports medicine doctor. His first name Larry Nasser. Larry Nasser. He had sexually violated hundreds of people. And remember the some of the girls, they wanted to go, after, high school, whatever, or, junior high school. They remember they wanted to go to school, to college eventually. And so they didn't want to out him because he was a reference. And so you feel stuck if you out somebody, and again your whole life is within this particular field, you'd be blacklisted. You don't want the death of your career. You're a young person, and so you just pretend like it never happened, but it happened. And so that's where a lot of times a lot of these victims aren't believed because, oh, we saw you talk to so and so. Oh, so and so wrote you a letter of recommendation. See how it all fits in, how the control fits in, and it's also used to disqualify you, to discredit you, because you had contact with that person. It also was used to discredit me. My abuser, one of my brothers, had abused me, and when I had notified the authorities on him about 15 years ago, I was told later on that I wasn't believed by my family because, oh, that same brother brought you to school once. I kid you not. So again, see how things could be twisted? So I'm letting you know out there who watch this that you have people, family members, or people out there in the public, when they hear your story and they try to disqualify you and say, well, you were in contact with that person. And again, in Hollywood, hey, you were with that person on the stage. If they did that to you, why you on the stage with them? Why, X, Y, and Z. See, it's all about control, and that you have to try to live your life in a way, because you still have to survive, and maybe that's the only field you know. So, it takes a lot to go into a different field, whatever. And again, you can get blacklisted from any job. And I think that's what was happening to me, that I was getting blacklisted. And I couldn't understand why all these things were happening to me on the job. And I found out that my father was asking people, family members who had an account with the company I worked for, and snoop around what I'm doing. Okay, why isn't she there? So I'm wondering how deep this rabbit hole really goes. Again, maybe it wasn't all that in depth, but it's just, again, a coincidence how people who were trying to control you, and the length that they use against you to get in your business, to control you, to use information against you. Yeah. So again, back to the black community as a whole. Now, so the 1980s and 90s was this propaganda. I call it weaponry. I call it a weaponry against a particular demographics, the black community, in really vilifying us. And remember, I made a video about this before. The first picture, motion picture, was a picture about black people, and that black people are to be feared. The film took place, featured, I think it was right after slavery, and it featured the Klansmen, and that to fear black people because they're going to rape your wife. That was the ploy. Back then, that movie was made around 1918 around. But that was the first picture ever made in this country. And I think also was the first picture film ever on the planet. So it's really something. See how it all kind of fits in? Okay, so you use media. In this case, it was a film that was made around 1918, 1917, and it featured fear against black people that they are rapists. So again, you're using film or media to socially control a population, and in this population that they wanted to fear were white people. They wanted white people to be afraid of blacks. What happened after slavery in the United States? You had blacks that were moving out, moving away from that trauma, moving up north to have the better life, right? But it wasn't a better life for us. They used that movie strategically and to encourage the growth of the Ku Klux Klan. And again, these are people who are former slaves and maybe grandchildren of slaves, and you put that on them, on the black community. So black people were vilified. So from victim to villain, you are now the boogeyman, the monster. But all this was part of Hollywood and its control over society. See, it's the society as a whole that is to be controlled according to these retrobates in these high places, So here I mentioned about the film in Hollywood. This before Hollywood actually, that was used against blacks, and again the 1980s and 90s, the revilification of blacks. But the 1970s was to try to make the black look like the hero, but the images were stereotyped. These were pimps and people who were beating up the authority. So it gave a false hero to the black community, and then whammo, it tore us down and then vilified us, And then the 1960s, you didn't see any movies in the 1960s with blacks. Only thing you saw on television were the snapshots of the riots that were in the schools, the colleges. Same as the 1950s, the boycotts, the riots, things like that. But again, the media was used to traumatize a nation, to make us afraid of each other, to make blacks hate and fear whites, and make whites hate and fear blacks. See how it goes? How we both are being used to traumatize each other. So I'm mentioning this because all what you see now in the media, it's the exposure of the system, the Hollywood system. Hollywood seems like, in television, it's like the real government. It's like what they call the cabal, which is in control of the television, movie industry, to really shape the way people think and think about each other. So you can control neighborhoods, you can control black people, keep them in the ghetto, keep them oppressed, keep them killing each other. And then the whites are being used to, they're trafficking them into other countries, just like Fiona Barnett that I mentioned earlier, that she was here, she's an Australian woman, but as a little girl, she was brought to the United States. And she said she was brought to that grove in Northern California, the Bohemian Grove, something like that. I forget the name. But yes, she was used there. And again, She mentioned that it was a place of it's Luciferianism, and Luciferianism also involves the killing of children. And so this country is not a Christian-based country at all. These are people, it's being run by Luciferians and Satanists, and that they use children to blackmail adults in high positions. They are used to blackmail actors and actresses, and it's a control over the whole system. It's frightening. This whole thing is frightening. And I have here also my notes. There was a movie that came out not too long ago. It's called Monsters, Inc. I didn't go out to see it, but it was a movie about monsters scaring children and using the fear that these children have to take their energy. Fear is an energy. And so, my goodness, so again, Hollywood is revealing what it really is. It's a medium of putting as much trauma to an audience, to destroy, to control, and to just kill one another. I think this is so sad. It's just I feel that I'm starting to slowly really understand the layers and how deep this really goes. And so those in the Black community who are watching this, you're not alone, and that they're not just targeting you because of your color. That's an excuse. Color is an excuse. We come in all different hues, this planet. You don't see them taking people from India, the Pacific Islands, you don't see them using these people. Their skin is just as dark as mine and darker. But you don't see them using them in the media here to vilify them, like how they vilify blacks. So don't be fooled about what you look like and being vilified being someone of African ancestry. This is just a perpetuation of a group, and it's all for a reason. And I'm sure it goes deeper, this whole thing with Hollywood and perhaps the secret space program. Again, I did interview someone who was that claimed that they were in the 20 Years and Back program, that they were kidnapped as a child. They were about maybe 9 years old, 8, 9 years old, and they were a bright person. They were a good student, and then there was a disagreement with another little child, and the child that they didn't like had a parent, and that person allegedly was in the Illuminati, and that child told on the other child, and the next thing you know, they're being abducted by a little gray alien or something like that, and then they get into this child. They're being tortured in California by this married couple, and being traumatized, being raped, and all these other things. So again, see that? Using children again to do dirty work, and a possible 20-year and back. Interesting though, this person that I interviewed in the 20-year and back, his name was Tony Rodriguez, and I'm thinking back, like he's saying that they use Caucasians because they said the genetics, and that it's easier to mind control whites over blacks. But again, I don't know how true that is. I mean, I don't know. That's his understanding of it. So I'm wondering whether there's a separate program to use blacks specifically in the mind control. But one thing I do notice, at least in New York City, they're using blacks to be the security guards. So look around. Look at who does what now. So when you go to an establishment, they have security. Who do you see? You see black men and women. So in the past, well, you also have them in the police force. It's growing. The numbers are growing. Blacks in the New York City police force, but especially security guard work. So I'm thinking that, okay, maybe they want the whites to work to blackmail the people in government, Hollywood, things like that. And it'd be too much of a red flag using blacks in Hollywood because they're not as that many blacks in Hollywood. So if you're a white person with a black child, you're going to stand out. Hey, people are going to say, hey, what's up with them with that black child? So what do you use them for? Or maybe you traumatize them enough and have them work in security work. And they act very, you see how they act and you see how they look, So, and I used to be a security guard. I was a licensed security guard briefly. But the type of people that they're getting in there are crazy. Simply crazy. Really weird. And I'm saying, wow, this is the type of people that they have doing this. So again, everything is for a purpose. That's what I'm getting at. Everything, whether you're a black person or a black Latino from the Caribbean, you all seem to be used in that traumatized and you're encouraged to go into that area, security work, or in the correctional facilities to work in there. Just start noticing. See, they're not discriminating against you to go in those fields because, see, that's where they want you to do, what they want you to get into, So I think everything ties into everything else, and that we're all being victimized. The black community is being victimized. We're victimizing each other. The drug wars is all imposed on us. And I was told that the drug wars was facilitated by the CIA and the FBI. And again, why even do this? Again, when you use drugs on a community, again, you affect their mind. But so much death. There's so much death involved. See, that's what's confusing me. How can you control a dead person? I mean, I just don't understand it. Or maybe, again, if they're all Satanists or Luciferians, well, the more people that die, the more, blood sacrifice. And again, using that blood that was spilled as a power force to increase their own power and control over the planet. Yeah. So everything is connected to everything else. And so it's my desire with all this. I know I mentioned a lot. I mentioned about the what they call now Pedowood, meaning the pedophilia in Hollywood. I mentioned about the three people that sparked this video that I'm doing now. Fiona Barnett, who's from Australia, who was part of the satanic ritual abuse, and she outed certain movie personalities. Also Sarah Ruth Ashcraft, who tweeted about her abuses in Hollywood, and also the most current, Isaac Cappy, who used to be in acting, who has a lot of actor friends, and he also outed a lot of people in Hollywood being the perpetrators of young children. And that also ties in the black community to traumatize a community, whether it be black or white, whatever, and use them against themselves to keep them trapped, and then traumatize, and also for them to get into the, what you call the security work. So you're more brutal. Also, blacks are also being overrepresented in the military, so now they're being used in the military. See, all about control and all about spilling blood of other people. So what I am saying now is that I want to make an appeal. I want to appeal to those viewers out there who this touches, and that you're not alone, and to learn to go deep within yourself about the things that have happened to you, and to start asking questions, how things relate to other things. Talk to people who you can trust, and try to encourage one another, and to know that it's not just because of what race you are, but if you're a black person, it's about control, and they're using white people as a control to control them as well. And they set up false narratives in Hollywood or television to make you think a certain way, to make you feel a certain way about body image. And you notice also a lot of people in Hollywood, they bleach their hair. So it's about denying what nature gave you. So it's about, again, shaming one's image, about making people have certain orientations, because now that's the new flavor of the month. It's all about social engineering. Realize what it is. Racism, sexism, is all about social control, and it's nothing personal. It's something just sinister to all humanity. All humanity, regardless of race, religion, nationality, are being used by these criminals. And some of those criminals could be even your family, being used to manipulate you, to control you, to do harm. Start using positive affirmations over your life. Start looking within. I want to try to do more meditation, and even like having a mirror. You do a meditation, you give a word of protection over you, and look into your own eyes in the mirror and look within. See, you are your best friend. And if you are afraid to look at yourself, it's because of the lies that you believed about yourself. There's no other person better than oneself. You are your best friend. Become your own best friend, to learn to love yourself, to be a true lover of self. Speak kind words to yourself in the mirror, just to feed yourself. Start eating the right type of foods. If you could stay away from certain foods, processed foods, stay away from it if you can, or eat it in moderation, but eat live foods, veggies and everything. I'm trying to eat more vegetables to try to increase my energy intake, plant life intake, try to make sure you treat your body right. Try to get out in nature more. So that's also why I'm doing this video, because I want to keep the latter of the day, free, and just go out and be in nature, and learn that I'm a created being by the Creator who loves me, and you're not a bad person. And the things that happen to you is because that you have bad people out there who do bad things, that you're not a bad person. Keep telling yourself you are a good person. You are valued and you are loved. Keep saying that to yourself. You can even get a tape recorder or a digital tape recorder and talk in it and say good things about yourself, and you can sleep with it on. So you bathe your mind with positive things. Maybe you might want to go to a hypnotherapist or something like that to try to get to the roots of your fears. And I'm thinking about doing that again. So that's all that I can think of. And I want to thank you, YouTube viewers, for being behind me to encourage me through your viewership and your positive comments to me. I really appreciate it. I'm human just like you. We all need encouragement. We all need help. And if I can help an individual by my videos, I want to continue to do that. And I'm encouraging you all who watch my videos, you can start your own channel and share your stories to us, because each of us encourage one another through the sharing of what happened to you. We want to understand each other so we could support each other emotionally, okay? So again, I thank you so much for watching, and uh, may you all have a wonderful day, a safe weekend. Get out there and remind yourself that you are the beloved. Okay? So I thank you for watching, and let's keep on keeping on. All right? Take care. Bye-bye. Boy, I hope it went on. I might have accidentally, I think I forgot to turn it on, the recording. Oh, brother, I hope that didn't happen.